In the mountainous region of Sora City, Mitsurugi, heir to his family's legacy, practiced his swordsmanship with unshakable determination. As he swung his sword, he reflected on a feeling that had been with him since childhood, a sense that something powerful lay dormant within him, waiting to awaken. Blessed to be born into a noble family, Mitsurugi had trained under excellent teachers. Though his mother had passed away, everyone had treated him well, and now he was engaged to a kind fiancée. He believed that one day, his hidden power would emerge, and he would inherit the family's phantom blade style. He imagined himself as the guardian of the demon gate, protecting the world from evil. He never doubted the bright future that awaited him. But during the ceremonial trial, Mitsurugi's sword slipped from his grasp and fell to the ground. He had just failed the trial and was disowned by his father, who exiled him from their city with a cold expression, saying there was no place for someone as weak as him in their clan, which had sealed demons for 300 years. Mitsurugi was quickly replaced as the family heir. His engagement was broken off, and the only person who saw him off was his master, who wished him well. Hardened by his difficult childhood, Sora recalled losing everything at the age of 13. He vowed that one day, he would return to his homeland. 5 years later, in the kingdom of Canaria, in the city of Ashak, Sora was shocked to hear that his qualifications as an adventurer were being revoked. Stunned, he listened as the guild receptionist, Lydell, earnestly repeated the news. Seeing his confusion, Lydell reassured him that it was no joke and confirmed that it was an official decision approved by the guild master. She showed him the notification letter as proof. Reading the letter, Sora saw the guild master's seal and was dismayed. He reflected on just having completed his daily herb-picking quest and wondered if he had made a mistake. He asked the receptionist if there might be an error in the decision, but she pointed out that he had not been promoted in the last 3 years, which warranted his dismissal from the guild. Sora was stunned. It had been 3 years since his demotion, and he hadn't advanced past level 10, fulfilling all the requirements for dismissal. He admitted he didn't know about this condition, and told the receptionist she could have warned him earlier to prevent this outcome. Lydell, annoyed, refused his plea, stating the rules were clearly written in the guild's guidelines, implying it was Sora's fault for not reading them. As he tried to defend his case further, she looked at him with anger and disgust, eager to get rid of him quickly. She added that the guild favored adventurers because the city needed their help to fight monster threats. As long as someone was a guild member, it was their duty to serve and protect Ishka. Sora knew this, which is why he moved to Ishka, planning to protect its people from monsters and make a name for himself. He vowed to show everyone that he was valuable and could build a reputation beyond his birthplace. But now, that dream seemed far from reality. Lydell scolded him, saying it was his fault for not advancing in the last 3 years. After all, becoming a rank 9 adventurer wasn't hard. Sora argued that the level 9 test required a silver coin, which was a lot for him. In disbelief, the receptionist asked why he couldn't earn that amount in 3 years with all the privileges of an adventurer. Finally, she told him he was officially dismissed from his position as an adventurer, crushing Sora. He tried to plead his case one last time, but she dismissed him coldly. Devastated, Sora sat near a fountain, recalling how the receptionist used to give him rewards after his quests, making him feel welcome. Now, as he was no longer an adventurer, he had no privileges like an extra room. His adventurer ID card was taken back, marking him as a wandering adventurer. He considered working as a city waste cleaner to make a living, but worried that committing to such a job would prevent him from becoming stronger and gaining fame as he desired. He used to collect herbs for the guild, risking his life outside the city, hoping to help someone in need of rescue from monsters. Reflecting on his situation, he realized it wasn't different from when he was exiled from his hometown 5 years ago. Once again, he had nowhere to go. He tried to comfort himself, thinking he could start over. However, he had poor relationships with other adventurers, who called him a parasite behind his back and laughed at him. He decided this had to be the beginning of his new journey, and he would level up to the next rank. He activated his status display and saw that his abilities hadn't changed at all. The rank shown was still the lowest, mocking him, saying he was still a weak child. Exiled from his island home, Sora finally decided to leave the city, recalling how he became an adventurer 5 years ago, hoping to get a job. A young Sora visited the Adventurers Guild, where an adventurer named Lars approached him and invited him to join his party. Lars shared that he became an adventurer to improve the living conditions in his impoverished village. As he spoke, a female adventurer interrupted, scolding Lars for abruptly approaching a stranger. She apologized to Sora, introducing herself as a warrior and childhood friend of Lars. Another girl, Muru, chimed in, scolding them both for arguing in front of Sora. Lastly, Luna, trying to calm the group, greeted Sora warmly. Sora introduced himself, and Lars remarked on how unique his name was. He invited Sora to join their party, the Falcon Swords. Though Sora found them to be a friendly and welcoming group, he remained cautious due to his past experiences with his own clan. Lars disagreed, recalling that he had seen Sora training at the guild arena and was impressed by his dedication and nearly perfect form. From that day, Sora became part of the Falcon Swords, hoping to start a new life with his new friends. However, no matter how many monsters he defeated or missions he completed, his rank never increased. He remembered the day when Lars finally reached level 6 and the team celebrated with him. Inspired, Sora decided to reveal his secret to the group, hoping they would still accept him. He gathered his courage and told them that despite all his efforts, his rank had never increased past level 1. He promised to work even harder to improve. But upon hearing this, the party members looked at him with disgust and disappointment, accusing him of betraying them and benefiting unfairly from their hard work. Muru called him a parasite, exploiting the party. In an instant, Sora was expelled from the group. Luna tried to explain that Sora might be under the influence of the talent limit phenomenon. She mentioned that even though he completed the same missions as everyone else, his level wouldn't increase. This theory stemmed from 300 years ago, when a swordsman sealed a demon and never surpassed rank 99. Luna pointed out that even legendary heroes had limits, just like ordinary people, varying only by their level of talent. Heartbroken, Sora realized his talent limit was the lowest. Luna tried to comfort him, suggesting he could find another path besides being an adventurer. With rumors spreading about him being a parasite, Sora struggled to join other parties. After leaving his party, Sora chose to undertake solo quests, remaining stuck at rank 10 with no desire to advance due to his financial constraints. One day, a group of thugs ambushed him and stole his bag. One thug taunted him, suggesting he was probably another useless adventurer expelled from the guild. As they rummaged through his backpack, one of them noted dismissively that it only contained a bunch of medicinal herbs. Sora pleaded for the return of his potion bottles, explaining that he intended to sell them. The thug, intrigued by the illegal nature of the herbs, proposed a partnership. He wanted Sora to gather more herbs from the forest, a task that had claimed the lives of many new recruits. Reluctantly, Sora agreed, never imagining he would stoop to such a shady deal. The harsh reality left him with no choice. Feeling broken and having abandoned his ideals, he kept telling himself that he had to do this to survive, convincing himself that he was still an adventurer who wanted to help others. In the mountains of Teddy's, Sora began his quest for herbs. After hours of foraging, he finally found some. As he inhaled their scent, he noted that it was the perfect time to harvest them. For a moment, he felt the joy of being an adventurer again. He entertained the idea of becoming an herb collector and opening his own shop, free from the guild's control. With the high demand for these herbs, he was confident his business would thrive. This new plan gave him a fresh start after being expelled from the guild. This positive thought lifted his spirits to the point where he felt genuinely happy about his situation. Suddenly, Muru appeared behind him and asked why he was in the forest. Sora turned to her, his face a mix of surprise and disgust. Muru demanded that he speak if he had something to say, mocking him for deceiving them for 6 months and calling him a parasite. At that moment, other members of the Falcon Swords arrived. Now quite renowned as a C-rank party, they stood out because there were no A-rank parties in Ishka and only 3 B-rank parties in the region. The C-rank level was filled with veterans, but the Falcon Swords had reached their rank in less than 5 years, making them a promising party. One member stepped forward, mentioning that he had heard about Sora's expulsion from the guild. He warned Sora to stop adventuring before his low rank put him in serious danger. Sora bitterly thanked him for his concern. ID berated him for being unambitious, regretting ever considering him a good man. Lars intervened, telling ID that Sora was no longer their concern, and that it would be his own fault if he died for ignoring their advice. Muru agreed, urging the group to leave, while expressing her disgust at being near Sora. Ellis tried to hurry them along, but Luna stopped to say she was glad to see Sora and gave him a kind look. Sora remembered that Luna had been the only one to show him kindness after he became a burden to the party. However, he also recalled overhearing the night he was expelled that Luna was the first to call him a parasite. He suspected that, like the other girls in the party, Luna was interested in Lars. Before leaving, Luna warned him that many people had disappeared in the forest and urged him to be careful. This reminder echoed what the thugs in town had told him. Luna went on to explain that Teddy's forest was vast enough to house an entire country, and was rumored to harbor mythical creatures in its deepest parts. The recent number of disappearances was alarmingly high, even among C-rank parties. Sora suspected that lower-ranked adventurers were being sent into the forest to cut costs, leading to the high number of missing persons. After giving her advice, Luna left. Sora pondered the mysterious occurrences in the forest, but realized that fewer adventurers gathering herbs could make his business thrive. He resumed foraging, enjoying the fragrance of the plants as if nothing had happened. He imagined opening his own shop and even considered brewing medicinal teas to sell. These hopeful thoughts made him grateful for being expelled from the guild, seeing it as an opportunity for a fresh start. Sora lay in the grass, feeling happier than ever. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, bringing with it an unsettling presence. Low-ranking monsters began to flee, and as Sora was about to do the same, he saw the Falcon Swords running frantically from something. Looking up, he froze. Sora's eyes widened in terror as he saw a colossal disaster-class monster known as the Lord of Flies approaching. As the giant, menacing Fly Lord hovered over the Falcon Swords, it unleashed its paralyzing venom upon them. Sora was paralyzed with fear as the Fly Lord, a disaster-class monster typically requiring immediate night intervention, continued its relentless assault. He doubted if the Falcon Swords, despite their experience, could defeat such a formidable beast. Lars was hit by the venom, and Muru hid in the bushes as their leader commanded a retreat. Luna was also struck down while trying to aid the party. Muru stepped forward and cast her magic, but to her horror, it had no effect on the Fly Lord. Realizing their dire situation, she concluded that the only way to save themselves was to use Sora as bait and redirect her magic towards him. The Fly Lord, notorious for its immense strength and rapid reproduction, could unleash countless larvae that would devastate ecosystems and prey on humans. Known to have annihilated entire nations, this creature would inject its venom-laden stinger into its victims, paralyzing them before dragging them back to its nest alive. Muru recognized that Sora, the weakest among them, would be the perfect bait for the beast. Sora fell to the ground, his limbs trembling, glaring at Muru with anger over her betrayal. As the Fly Lord loomed above, ready to strike, Sora, driven by sheer will to survive, forced himself to rise and flee. Channeling his rage towards those who had abandoned him, Sora used it as fuel to push forward. He refused to die now, with a new future in sight. He aspired to find happiness and become a successful herbal merchant. Through this resolve, he believed he could fulfill his destiny. Sora wielded his sword to protect others, dreaming of returning to his homeland and earning his father's recognition. As he fought for his life, his thoughts drifted back to the days on his island, where he was mocked by those around him, including his father, who saw him as nothing more than a crying disappointment. He recalled asking his mother why she named him after the sky. She told him that the sky was vast and had the power to connect people no matter where they were. He hoped to grow as generous as the sky, his mother had once told him, trying to comfort him. She wanted him to fill his heart with ambitions, assuring him that his future wasn't limited to the Mitsurugi family. Slowly, Sora opened his eyes and found himself inside the nest of the Lord of the Flies. Trying to move, he realized he was paralyzed by the monster's venom. A faint moan caught his attention. He turned to see a horrifying sight: people rotting alive, being consumed by larvae. The beast had deliberately kept its prey alive to prolong their suffering as they were slowly devoured. Panic set in as Sora frantically scanned his surroundings, realizing that the larvae were now approaching him, ready to feast. He screamed in horror as they began to consume his arms, fingers, and legs. Paralyzed and helpless, he watched in terror as his body was consumed. The larvae's secretions deadened the pain, replacing it with a disturbing sense of euphoria, leaving him feeling like a condemned criminal awaiting execution. If each larva became a Lord of the Flies, the kingdom of Canaria would be in ruins. Known for their swordsmanship, the Mitsurugi family would be the ones to eradicate the monsters. The people would celebrate their success and hail them as heroes who saved humanity, while Sora's death at the hands of the Lord of the Flies would remain unknown, and no one would ever hear of him again. Grieving for himself, Sora screamed as his body was consumed piece by piece, furiously begging the larvae to stop. He didn't want to die, especially not in this horrific place. As the larvae continued to crawl over him, he began to question his life choices, giving up on being an adventurer, abandoning his sword, ignoring the warnings from Lars. He screamed until his voice became hoarse, and then, as the larvae attacked his mouth, his screams turned into internal echoes. Soon, he was entirely covered by thousands of larvae. He watched in horror as his hands and feet disappeared, leaving him unable to hold a sword or walk. Despair engulfed him, and he felt like giving up, something he should have done long ago. He wasn't even himself anymore. That's when he heard a voice urging him to eat the larvae instead of being eaten. He didn't want to die, but he felt powerless both on his home island and in the city of Ashta. Whether as a warrior or adventurer, he had always been useless, proving his father's words right. The head of the Mitsurugi clan wouldn't even laugh at his death. To him, Sora had died since he was exiled. Yet, Runa, his former fiancée, the guild, and the Falcon Sword would surely laugh at him. Thinking of their mockery rekindled his determination to survive. The voice urged him to eat. Renewed by this determination, Sora began devouring the larvae, fighting for his life. He vowed to avenge those who looked down on him, to devour them as they had devoured him. The voice guided him, saying they were the vast sky, together they were infinite and powerful. The voice then announced that a ceremony would soon begin, telling him to prepare. The voice took the form of a dragon in the vast sky, declaring they were one and the same. As the dragon was about to speak his name, Sora felt an unbearable heat, as if his flesh and bones were burning. A wave of heat surged through his body. With sheer willpower, Sora unleashed a primal scream, igniting his inner strength. He had seen the Phantom Sword-style ceremony countless times, and now he was ready. Activating his core, he shaped his power into a dragon blade, naming it the Soul Eater. At last, he had the strength to defeat powerful demons, a power he had longed for since childhood. Now, with his core and newfound strength, he was ready to embrace his destiny. He swung his sword, obliterating every last larva in the nest, mocking them as pathetic insects while he exterminated each one. A surge of immense pleasure washed over him, likely due to the soul-devouring dragon blade in his hand. He had no intention of showing mercy. He vowed to destroy them all. He mused that the larvae of the Lord of the Flies rarely reached adulthood and often fell prey to other monsters. The thought of the Lord of the Flies returning to find its offspring slaughtered exhilarated him, sending a rush of excitement through his veins and igniting his soul with newfound power. Feeling nearly invincible, he activated his status display, revealing he had now ascended to rank 2, proving his talent was not confined to a mere rank 1. He wondered if the pleasure he felt came from gaining experience points after slaying thousands of larvae. However, he realized it was more than just points. It was the power of his Soul Eater, capable of consuming the souls of his enemies and absorbing their essence. He laughed maniacally, swinging his sword and devouring the larvae as if at a feast. Suddenly, the Lord of the Flies appeared, glaring at him menacingly. Sora taunted the monster fearlessly, mocking it about slaughtering all its offspring, who had cried out for their mother's help as if understanding their fate. The Lord of the Flies let out a thunderous roar, but Sora laughed with delight, feeling more alive than ever. Thrilled by the monster's sorrow, he assured the beast that its children had not died in vain, for their souls had helped him level up. He thanked the Lord of the Flies, stating that if it hadn't brought him to the cave, he would not have awakened his power. With its toxin-laden stinger, the fly monster attacked, but Sora, now more agile than ever, effortlessly dodged the strike. His body felt lighter, more responsive. He countered with a flurry of slashes, each blow siphoning off a piece of the monster's soul, flooding him with immense pleasure with every strike. The Lord of the Flies roared, its soul becoming more tantalizing with each swing of Sora's blade. Sora's strikes now harnessed pure strength from his arm's power. This technique, capable of felling even the mightiest foes, had eluded him until now. The Phantom Blade style of the Mitsurugi clan required harnessing the full power of the swordsman, and Sora was finally able to unleash its true potential. His family had been tasked with protecting the world from demonic gates, a duty demanding relentless training to master the blade style. In the midst of defeating the Lord of the Flies, Sora suddenly felt the effects of fatigue, realizing the monster was losing interest and trying to flee. Determined to end the fight, he leaped and inflicted more damage on the beast. The creature's agility reminded Sora to stay cautious despite his newfound strength. A single hit from the monster could still be fatal. He needed to finish the battle with one decisive move. With the power he had yearned for since childhood, a power designed to vanquish monsters like the Lord of the Flies, Sora activated the Phantom Blade style. With a single strike, he deployed one of the basic techniques called Gale, a leaping slash that infused his power into the blade. Standing over the fallen beast, he stabbed it once more with his Soul Eater, sending it and its larvae to the afterlife. The creature's high-pitched death wail echoed through the forest. With his enemy defeated, Sora pondered his escape from the cave. He realized he had used his ki power to enhance his body's strength. This ki was a form of magical energy generated within the body, similar to the life force used by mages to cast spells. Unlike ki, mana was found in nature, and was the preferred choice for casting magical spells. However, The phantom blade style required the creation of anima. Once manifested, the ki within one's body became far superior to natural mana. Since the discovery of this method, various styles known as ki arts have been developed. These arts were designed to combat demons. Activating his level display again, Sora saw that he had now reached level 5, a significant leap from his previous level. He felt immense satisfaction knowing that his hard work had finally paid off. Nearby, he spotted other prey brought in by the Lord of the Flies earlier. As Sora examined the body more closely, he realized the girl wasn't human. She was a Kaidan. The Kaidan were an ancient enemy of humanity, believed to be evolved demons after the original demons were sealed away. Now, the few remaining Kaidan were hunted for their horns, which held great magical power. With this knowledge, Sora pondered what to do with the Kaidan before him. Sora took a closer look, confirming that this was indeed one of the mythical beings from the Teddy Mountains. He wondered why she was covered in dirt and mud, and speculated whether her revealing clothing was typical for her race. His gaze lingered on her chest, and he was startled by the size of her breasts, given her small frame. Realizing his thoughts, he chastised himself for being a pervert, curious about a creature he considered killing. Tempted by the idea of selling her horn for a high price, which would allow him to live comfortably for the rest of his life, he also sensed the high-quality soul of the woman. Briefly, he considered consuming her soul to increase his own power. The temptation was strong, and he unconsciously unleashed his soul-eating dragon. Pointing his sword at the Kaidan's neck, Sora snapped back to reality. He punched himself in the face, scolding himself for targeting an innocent being who hadn't harmed him. He realized that his newfound power was changing him, giving him an insatiable hunger and predatory instincts. He no longer felt like a guardian, but more like a predator. This change, though unsettling, made him feel more alive than ever. He wondered if this was the effect of the Soul Eater, or if it was his hidden nature coming to the surface. Awakening to the realization that both aspects were a part of him, Sora resolved to control his power to avoid becoming a monster. Noting that the Kaidan girl was still unconscious and barely clothed, he hoped she wouldn't regain consciousness too soon. His attention shifted to an adventurer being devoured by larvae. Recognizing the equipment, he deduced that it must be the missing C-rank adventurer Luna had mentioned. He prayed for the fallen adventurer and, with a sense of guilt but understanding the necessity, took the equipment for his own survival. A few moments later, fully equipped in the adventurer's gear, the Kaidan girl began to regain consciousness. She was startled to see Sora, who quickly explained that the Lord of the Flies had brought her to the cave. He reassured her, pointing to the beast's corpse nearby, that he had defeated it. As they prepared to leave the cave, Sora assessed their surroundings and realized the only exit was through the ceiling. While this would be a difficult feat for a normal person, he knew he could use his energy to jump high. Thinking of a strategy, he offered to help the Kaidan girl escape by suggesting she ride on his back. Despite her paralysis, her determined expression showed she was willing to try. Surprised by her decision, given the long-standing enmity between their races, Sora instructed her to climb onto his back. Together, they prepared for their escape. They prepared to escape the nest after a few more leaps. Finally, Sora and the Kaidan managed to break free from the monster's lair. Sora felt as if he had been reborn, which was fitting since he had essentially faced death. Emerging from the dark nursery into the warm light outside, he realized he had survived and could barely hold back his tears. Remembering the demon girl on his back, he asked if she was still numb. Fortunately, she could speak and apologize for her own tears, feeling saved. He pretended not to share her emotions, but then she shyly and sincerely expressed her gratitude close to his ear. He accepted her thanks warmly, feeling his heart swell. It had been a long time since anyone had thanked him, and it was a significant moment for her too. He was reminded that the Phantom Blade style was meant to protect others, When he asked where she wanted to go, she remained silent. Understanding her hesitation, he suggested she choose a safe place, like a mountain or tree, so he could take her there. She pointed to a specific tree, but to him, they all looked the same. She tried to explain further, but only caused more confusion. He told her to hold on tight, as they decided to leap off the cliff first, and then readjust their course with the girl on his back. They descended effortlessly. The sensation of the wind against his face left Sora in awe. As they surged forward, the fresh air filled their lungs, and the Kaidan, overwhelmed by wonder, smiled brightly. They soared high into the sky, taking in the breathtaking view before landing in a dense forest. The girl quickly surveyed their surroundings. Sora noticed the trees she had pointed out earlier and the berries, which she claimed had detoxifying effects, a revelation that astounded him. He had specialized in medicinal plants for years, and had never encountered anything like them. He tasted one, shivering from its strong flavor, but soon felt revitalized, freed from the paralyzing effects on his body. She looked at him in amazement, recognizing the magical properties of the berries. Inspired, he briefly considered turning this discovery into a thriving business, but the Kaidan's gratitude interrupted his thoughts. She thanked him, to which he humbly responded that he was just doing what adventurers do, and was glad to help. Seeing her bow her head, he remembered that despite their current circumstances, demons were far stronger than humans. Yet, she seemed like an ordinary girl now. Reflecting on their time together, he realized he had grown immensely powerful, making demons seem like mere children to him. As he prepared to leave, she stopped him, insisting on properly expressing her gratitude. He argued that it wasn't necessary, but she looked at him with sincere eyes and introduced herself. Upon hearing the confirmation, Fearsome was taken aback. She nodded eagerly and asked for his name. With their introductions complete, they began to understand each other better. As they moved along, he was warned to avoid the human territory downstream, near the river of Ishka, the likely place of his passage. The forest, known to be full of magical beasts, posed no threat to him. He wondered if the creatures could sense the terrifying power within him. Confidently, he pressed forward, feeling like the strongest being in the area. Fearsome expressed her longing for human settlements and the loneliness of traveling alone. Suddenly, she heard human voices and rushed to the source, finding a group of armed and well-equipped adventurers from the royal forces of Canaria. They were mobilizing to stop the Lord of the Flies from breeding, unaware that the monster had already been slain. From a distance, it was clear they were experts and a disciplined unit, at least on par with an elite group. Sora realized that Falcon's sword must have informed the guild about the monster. To his surprise, he spotted his former party among the crowd. They likely needed a leader, and it must have been an honor for them to survive the encounter. Lars led the way, pretending to greet Sora, while Isla acted as if she was injured. However, the former members knew better than to trust them. Filled with anger over their betrayal, Sora felt a genuine thrill at the prospect of exacting his revenge. They joined the conquest force without a care, leaving him to wonder how they would react upon seeing the monster's den. Luna moved on, while Muru grabbed his arm. Sora felt a violent urge to tear them all apart but decided to restrain himself and savor their suffering for as long as possible. His thoughts grew darker, dwelling on the despair and humiliation they would face until their inevitable deaths. The creature within him began to take over, its essence activating. Fortunately, he managed to stop himself from losing control and being consumed by the ravenous entity. Attacking now would make him an enemy of the royal army and a criminal. It would be foolish to hunt them down immediately. Instead, he would let them live in the hell he envisioned for them. When the time was right, he would completely destroy them and everything they had built. Only then could he feed on them. Luna was shocked to see Sora asking for help from the front. The Falcon Sword members were stunned, their mouths agape in unexpected surprise. Sora scratched his head lightly, wholeheartedly declaring he was lucky to have escaped the Lord of the Flies. Ishka served as a bastion, protecting the kingdom from various threats, including the dangers of the Tegu forest. The city became a vital trade gateway, bustling with adventurers and supported by a thriving industry. The guild overseeing these adventurers wielded considerable authority, and their most important meetings were held in a high room within their headquarters. Sora sat confidently in the center of this room. Just a day before, he would have shivered with nerves, but now he felt different. A guild member questioned if he intended to withdraw his accusation that the Falcon Sword had attacked him deliberately. Sora's mind was made up, but there were discrepancies in the story. Lars suddenly asked if Muru had truly cast a spell on Sora. Given the paralysis and panic during the incident, suspicion was warranted. They should have questioned the servant first, but she insisted her magic wasn't aimed at Sora, claiming it was an accident. Sora laughed cynically at his own misfortune, but then, with a serious demeanor, asked the guild leader to confirm that the spell was cast while they were fleeing, with the monster behind them and Sora in front. This meant the spell was directed at him, not the monster. Even a child learning magic wouldn't make such a mistake. Feeling cornered, Lytle said they were there to confirm the claims and reach a compromise, asking Sora to stop using harsh words. He laughed at the receptionist's pretense, seeing through her attempt to protect their high-ranking adventurers by dismissing his case. When he asked if he was insulting the guild, he was immediately told to punish the offenders. The woman didn't even acknowledge the impact on him, instead instructing him to drop the case, stating he had no grounds for it. He had no intention of backing down. Instead, he relished the look of irritation on her face, recalling how she had previously expelled him from the guild. She asked what he wanted them to do, her tone both arrogant and defiant, but he didn't care. Even if it meant appealing to the Holy Temple and accusing one of their priests of colluding with a sinner, he was prepared to go that far. Considering their lie-detecting spells, he saw it as a better option than wasting time arguing. Elia tried to stop him, subtly questioning the priest and using her affiliation to threaten him. Merwin defended his friend, claiming they had nothing to do with the incident and were instead taking advantage of the situation, leaving the fallen victim as bait. Disbelieving, Sora accused them of being lying murderers. Sora suggested they were planning to frame a story, portraying his death as an unfortunate event. The elf mage and the priest must have cast some sort of deceptive magic. Stunned by the accusation, Merwin admitted the situation was dire even for the adventurers, asserting that both parties shouldn't be dragged down together. He referenced an old case of a sailor who, when his ship sank, clung to a plank in the sea. When another sailor came, the plank was too small for both, forcing the first sailor to push the second away to his death. He was later tried for murder, but acquitted. Sora and Lars exchanged looks, realizing what had just been admitted. Merwin had essentially confessed to attacking Sora intentionally out of necessity. The captain was speechless, and the mage frantically apologized, insisting she only wanted to save him, and that it was all she could think of at the moment. She said she should be blamed if she failed only because she wasn't good enough. Lars, stepping in, said he would take the punishment, arguing that she wasn't solely at fault. Confirming his words, he told Sora to do whatever he wanted, even saying he would apologize for his folly. Sora accepted the leader's offer and ordered him to leave. He declared that he would kill the mage to end the entire matter. His intense determination was evident, and everyone retreated as he demanded Merwin admit he would kill her only after showing her true hell. Lars ordered Sora to stop joking, stating he would never grant such a request. The victim, however, questioned why Lars was angry, repeating Sora's words to do whatever he wanted, and insisted there were limits to what could be done. Lars argued there was no need to take a life, especially since Sora had survived. But Sora retorted that just because he survived on his own strength didn't mean they should let the attempted killer go free. He suggested ending it by killing the attacker. Lars told him to stop calling her a killer, because Sora was still alive and well. He asked Sora to imagine being stabbed in the heart and magically saved by a passing priest. Despite surviving, Sora would still consider the person who stabbed him a murderer. Sora's logical argument left Lars speechless, as they all realized how unreasonable the situation was. Allah then argued that the injury was to the arm, not the heart, but it was still a crime. He accused Sora of manipulating the story and creating an allegory to favor his side. Sora stared at him, knowing Allah had wanted to speak from the start, and now tried to interrogate him. Repeating what he said about the arm, Sora noted that the Rank C party should know about the Lord of the Flies ecology, and that letting it live was much harder. Seeing Lars' confusion, Sora politely asked Alad to explain clearly. Alad hesitated, knowing the answer but unwilling to say it. Feeling cornered, the captain ordered him to explain. Alad spoke about how the Lord of the Flies would bring its paralyzed prey back to its nest to feed the larvae. As he lay there, alive but unable to move, the realization of what had happened to Sora hit him. He began to understand a fraction of the despair she must have felt. The victim then asked AD whether killing someone on the spot was more cruel than letting them be eaten alive. His question was met with silence. He sarcastically called them good friends for keeping quiet about a murderer in their midst. Lars ordered him to stop insulting his members, but then he was asked if he truly believed it was just a coincidence that the group ran towards him during the attack. The truth was clear. The wizard and the priest probably knew there was a chance of survival if they left someone as bait. Naturally, it was the captain who was paralyzed by the poison, yet his comrades remembered how they met their former member in the forest. He accused them of deliberately seeking him out. Muru called his claims false, but he was glad they were finally retaliating. He pointed out that the wizard chose not to use fire magic, despite its effectiveness against insects, because it would have killed him too. Sora was acutely aware of the monster's hunting habits, and knew that only a living person was needed to avoid killing the bait. The wizard had used wind magic, limiting its power to hurt him with the aim of using him as bait. Lars refused to believe it, but Sora reminded them that among those who saw him as a parasite, Muru hated him the most. She had spread a bad reputation about him to isolate and eventually expel him. Still, he had stayed in the city, enduring it all. When the Lord of the Flies attacked, Muru found the perfect opportunity and used the monster to orchestrate his murder, knowing she could claim mitigating circumstances if accused. Lars couldn't believe how Sora could accuse his former comrade of such a thing, but Sora repeated how they had said they had nothing more to do with him in the forest. The room fell silent as everyone realized it was true. Muru, defeated, admitted to the attack, but claimed it was a momentary act not meant to kill him. While this might have been true, Sora found it hard to believe. He argued that no woman would admit to murder in front of a man she fancied. With that, they were cornered. She relied on her status as the daughter of a commerce chamber official, threatening him with consequences. However, her bluff faltered as tears streamed down her face. Enjoying the moment, she declared she wouldn't withdraw her opinion, but would instead consult with the guild. Confirming her decision with the receptionist, she requested a priest who could use a lie detection spell. The truth would then be revealed, and she promised to drop all charges if proven wrong. They viewed her as a burden and used her as bait to save Lars, which was their true intention, and this would surely be uncovered by the lie detection. As the suspect's tears fell, he calmly pointed out that such a spell required a significant donation, specifically 20 silver coins, which he doubted she had. He suggested the guild should pay to clear the confusion, but she argued it was her proposal. The guild would certainly want to prevent punishment for the Falcon Sword, and the receptionist clearly didn't like her while already understanding the situation. She claimed that his view of the incident seemed influenced by his painful history with the party. Lie detection should clarify that, but she insisted on the necessary donation. Feeling hurt, she told the Commerce Chamber's daughter to use this opportunity to clear her name. However, she and Lars saw no need, believing they knew how awful she was. They attempted to withdraw the proposal, but she suddenly announced she could pay and arrogantly produced some gold coins, questioning why they were discarded. She commanded them to call a priest. It was clear the wealth came from the merchant's prayers. When asked if they thought she obtained it illegally, the Soul Eater essence began to seep out, and she demanded a priest be summoned immediately, casting a threatening glance at the receptionist and asking how long she would remain idle. She thanked them for kicking her out of the guild, which essentially led her to find the coins. She agreed with everything they said, trembling in fear from the sinister presence. Everyone froze as the Soul Eater's essence neared manifestation. However, Sora was interrupted when the door opened, and an impressive man entered, identifying himself as a survivor of the monster attack and ordering her to stop bullying the staff. The large man approached Sora and asked if he was the one who survived the Lord of the Flies. The young man introduced himself, recognizing Elgar, who was present. Elgar was at level 35, the strongest person in town, and one of the top 5 adventurers in the kingdom. As the guild master, he had come across the commotion on his way home and decided to help. After briefly being informed about the situation and overhearing their conversation, he took control of the scene with his impressive aura. Skipping the formalities, Elgar was confident the victim wanted to proceed. The atmosphere shifted, making it clear that Elgar was exceptionally strong. As the leader of the Ishka Adventurers Guild, his presence exuded graceful charisma. Sora, now at a higher level, could sense that Elgar was even stronger than the Insect King. Regarding the lie detector request, the guild master used his authority to deny it, surprising everyone in the room. Sora asked if he was supposed to accept this unconditionally, but Elgar admitted the Falcon Sword's fault in the incident and promised appropriate punishment. The victim would be compensated, though it wouldn't be as severe as a death sentence. Elgar explained that the guild needed strong individuals for a brighter future and asked for understanding, clearly aiming to balance justice and practicality. Lars seemed to accept this favorable decision, but clarified his opposition to unreasonable punishment, like his members being cut to pieces to protect their friends. Elgar firmly stated that he had no reason to listen to Sora, who had been disaffiliated from the guild, but acknowledged that the attack on him was inexcusable. He mentioned mitigating circumstances, indicating his intention to conclude the matter with a fair and balanced punishment. Elgar stated that Sora was no longer a guild member, but merely a powerless civilian. Sora insisted that the townspeople should at least know that the adventurers had sacrificed him to save their own lives. The guild master rejected this request, emphasizing that spreading such information would only harm the guild's reputation and create a rift between the townsfolk and adventurers, something they had to avoid at all costs. Sora stayed silent, realizing that Elgar was right. As punishment, the culprits would be tasked with eradicating demons in the forest for a month, losing all rewards they earned. The compensation offered to Sora would be enough capital to open his potion shop, giving him access to previously restricted items he had tried to trade illegally. The guild master knew the city inside out, making this offer particularly tempting. However, Sora saw beyond the surface, understanding that the guild wanted to keep the matter hidden. Elgar made one final offer, a guild badge that promoted Sora to Class 9 and exempted him from monthly fees. He asked Sora to end things amicably by accepting the silver badge. Though tempted, Sora ultimately rejected the offer, realizing that none of his demands had been met, and the guild was merely trying to ensure the Falcon Sword's survival without delivering justice. He reiterated his request for a priest, undeterred by Elgar's reminder of his potential dismissal. Sora handed over the requested payment, but the guild master, feeling guilty, hesitated. Elgar promised to summon the priest himself and turned to Maru, asking firmly if she admitted to the crime of trying to kill him with the monster. Elgar warned against the path Sora was taking, emphasizing that adventurers were role models who wouldn't engage in such actions. He dismissed Sora's claims as paranoid fantasies and threatened appropriate measures if he persisted. Sora, undeterred by the threats, sarcastically suggested that they should just let him leave with a lesson learned. The guild master tried to stop him, saying they weren't done, but Sora insisted it was selfish to keep him when they had no intention of listening. Sora blocked the small door and demanded that they listen to him. When they threatened to take appropriate action if he didn't move, Sora, angered by their disrespect towards his master, reminded them that he had benefited the guild for 5 years. He questioned whether Elgar's dedication really meant protecting a murderer, his anger rising. Before things escalated further, the guild master intervened, addressing Sora. He acknowledged Sora's rejection, but added that the guild no longer needed to act on his behalf, since he had refused all terms of mediation. He let his hostility show, and warned Sora not to harm the guild in any way. Sora laughed at their threats, dismissing them as absurd, and called Lars useless. He made sure to get the last word, mocking their collusion. As he walked out, he resolved to rid himself of Leal that day. Now, both the Adventurers Guild and the Falcon Sword were his enemies, fueling a liberating yet violent feeling inside him. He acknowledged Soul Eater, accepting that they were one and the same, worn out by endless misery. Despite the sunset, the sun-warmed stones kept the city warm. His hesitation mirrored the conflict in his heart. The meeting had gone as he expected, knowing his demands would not be met. Yet he was still shocked by the party's refusal to acknowledge their sins. His chances were slim, and a faint regret lingered in his chest as he had hoped for their honesty. Lars, especially, had been a dependable leader who comforted him when he felt weaker. 5 years ago, they had welcomed him into their party when he was alone, filling him with immense joy. During their early days of adventuring, when they were all on the same level, they experienced a satisfaction he had never known before. If only they had admitted their mistake, he could have forgiven them and moved on. He thanked them one last time, now seeing them as mere enemies protecting someone who tried to kill him. The attempted murder had been covered up, and he was even threatened with severe actions. He vowed to tear them apart, making them feel the suffering he had endured in the monster's lair. He contemplated his revenge. Punishing everyone involved seemed justifiable, but he wondered if he could do it. It was unquestionable that he had grown much stronger, strong enough to kill the Lord of the Flies. Moreover, he had become a formidable leader. Yet, Elgart was a dangerous first-class adventurer. Reflecting on the many adventurers he had met in his hometown, they all had a unique intensity about them. Considering various outcomes if they fought, he realized it would likely end with his hands severed from his body. The odds were against him, and he couldn't even imagine a scenario where he ultimately defeated the guild master. The only real issue was the formidable strength of the Falcon Swords. While he gathered herbs, they grew stronger each day. Lars and the others were likely at levels 15 to 20, but Luna seemed even higher. Regardless, he hadn't yet reached their level since they became stronger as a team. Considering this, he thought about separating them and targeting each one individually. The depths of the forest, hidden from the guild's view and filled with monsters, might be useful for this. First, he had to lure Lars there alone and incapacitate him. Once he led Lars into the forest, he could take them down one by one. The mage would be his first target for attempting to take his life. He'd pile up the bodies of the party members and savor the despair on their faces. It didn't bother him if the mage tried to kill him, driven by misguided loyalty. Next, He planned to make the monster's den a livable place for himself. He thought through the essentials, and remembered how long it had been since he last spent a night out. The preparations made him excited and grateful to the monster's victims because they had left behind ample supplies. However, he suddenly recalled the gold coins he had shown off and had forgotten to retrieve when his request for a priest was denied. Thinking about going back to the guild, he imagined their shock and pity if he tried to reclaim his money. Sora decided against it, knowing they would look down on him. Desperate, he pulled at his hair, feeling the weight of his poverty. Then, he noticed a familiar figure on the street. His face soured when he saw Luna approaching. Sora left after a critical yet unproductive negotiation, leaving those remaining in the room feeling resentful. Suddenly, Luna felt a pain as if her heart was being consumed by darkness. Ilya hurried to check on her, and used a spell to alleviate the discomfort. As Luna calmed down, Lars asked what was on her mind. The elf pondered who this young man was. He resembled Sora, yet she was certain she knew their former member well when he was part of the party. They had always prepared for adventures together, but this man was undeniably different. As an elf, her eyes could only see endless darkness and a dragon-like shadow looming over him, powerful and relentless. She had seen no such creature when she encountered him in the forest. This made her wonder what had happened in the woods, and whether this young man was truly Sora or an evil monster that had possessed him. Elgard noticed her troubled expression, but Lars interrupted her thoughts, questioning if they should just let the incident pass since Sora had rejected their offer. He insisted they were in the wrong this time, and that what they did was unforgivable. The only reason he had protected them was because Sora's actions were destabilizing the guild and causing a shift towards Leal. He asked if the young man mentioned anything about the Fly Lord. He remembered Sora talking about nearly being devoured by the monster, and wanting to make the culprits feel even a fraction of the despair he had faced. If those words were true, then it was likely that Sora had been taken to the creature's lair, considering the time it took for him to return. They worried that the Fly Lord's nest might be close to the town, unaware that it had already been defeated. This made them realize the importance of Sora's information. Bellark wondered how Sora had managed to fend off such beasts in the forest, and regretted not listening to him earlier. Luna knew that very few monsters would attack Sora now, because he had the aura of a dragon, but she also knew no one would believe her if she told them. She needed a reason to talk to him. She saw a gold coin on the ground and picked it up, realizing it was the same coin Sora had flaunted earlier. As she walked towards the town, she encountered the person she was searching for. He was initially hostile, but she marveled at how close he was now, clearly seeing the dark entity and feeling its overwhelming pressure. She tried to return his coin, but he silently accepted it, relieved that he wasn't completely broke anymore. Luna then apologized for the past, specifically for abandoning him. Bowing deeply, she sincerely asked for his forgiveness, while onlookers watched the strange scene. She explained that her apology wasn't just about them, but about something larger. Sora rejected her apology, thanking her for the coin instead. He said that apologizing now was pointless, especially since they hadn't listened to him from the beginning. Luna realized he still had some humanity left, and wasn't completely possessed. She then asked why he didn't show this attitude before. He admitted that he had been too afraid of her to even breathe properly. Sora understood that bowing his head meant taking responsibility for the party's wrongdoing, suggesting that Luna couldn't bow alone without Lars. Luna denied this, questioning why she felt upset now that they were alone. As an elf, she looked down, unable to admit she was pleading for her life, satisfied with maintaining her relationship with the Falcon Sword, but no longer wanting to associate with him. Sora told her to look in the mirror and called her a hypocrite, her cold eyes etched in his mind, targeted by his hatred, claws poised, fangs thirsty for blood, and a sword burning for revenge. He was certain the day would come when he would tear them all apart. Luna watched his retreating back, shrouded in darkness, questioning what had happened to make him this way.